Welcome to It Takes Two. I'm Blair.
I'm Chris.
And today we'll be talking about Couples Therapy, Season 4, Episode 16.
I need you to subscribe, like, share, comment, all the above. You ready, Blair?
I'm ready.
Walk us through this, please.
So we start with Allison and Rod. Rod says last week was intense. He's not prone to speaking much. When he talks, it can be raw and difficult. And they were discussing plans for the weekend, and he felt vulnerable. Allison got a part-time job and has started working on weekends.
I like that for Allison.
I like it for her, too. He's had downtime. He was off on Sunday. He was feeling sad, related to like business, career, where he is and where he should be. She knew that he was a little bit off, and after work, she did check on him. He said he was fine, and she didn't press him like she usually does and left it alone. Orna says, Allison is doing the work, and you can see the difference between her in sessions. She hasn't made enough of a dent with Rod. He recruits Allison to speak for him or do the emotional work when he doesn't want to go deeper.
Yeah.
And so she asks, what do you need from Allison? And Rodna said kindness and respect. She does support him. And Allison says that she needs recognition.
Wait a minute now, Allison.
Orna says, well, listen and see how you can invite more from Rod instead of interrupting. Rod said that he's attracted to her loud personality, but sometimes it's too much and pushes him into the back seat. He wants it to be a little bit more even in the relationship. He would like her to give him patience, a moment to collect his thoughts, just to get it out. Allison heard that she needs to give him time to talk, and she will give him that time.
Yeah.
He feels like this has given Allison awareness and awareness for himself, and Allison kind of barks at him and says, how do you know it's giving me enlightenment or awareness? You are just assuming. She was triggered by him making things about her, and she wants it to be about him also. Orna says that if you want it to be about him, you need to be a better listener, and he needs to not pass the ball on to you. And Rod, he needs to own his own space, which he acknowledges he needs to do. Allison says that she likes hearing that he needs to own his own space, and she's liking him a little bit better now because he's actually speaking up.
Can we go back to Allison working on the weekends?
Sure.
Right. Personal question, Blair. When you were studying, or let's say if you have to study for a test, study for a class, what is your preference on how you study? Do you study with like a TV on, music, or do you need like complete silence? What is your preference?
It depends. Like I'll take a little bit of instrumentals, and study in a quiet room by myself. Yeah. Or like total quiet, not around nobody, like dead silent. Yeah. If it's something that I really don't understand. Okay. So
yeah. So you are the type to where like it can't be a lot of commotion and stuff, a lot of moving parts.
I need to be by myself.
You need to be by yourself. I think this what happened with Rod. The reason he started feeling down and started actually had time to think about his business and where he is in his life is because he was distracted by Allison. And now that Allison is not there on the weekends,
he's thinking.
Now your brain get to actually think. Now you are not distracted by, you gotta walk the dog. You know what I'm saying? Like now he's not distracted by, having their child basically be a resolve between them two. Now he actually get to think, and he's like, I don't know where I am in my business. I don't particularly like where I am in my life, and guess what? That's a good thing. Yes. Right. One thing that we saw, as I said, Allison is my favorite character on the show. We see, even though she has the tools, she needs to be retaught that hey. While Rod have the mic right now to say what he needs, this is not the time for you to respond and say what you need. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? And I think this is actually great for them. Rod gonna have to learn to open up. I think he's used to doing things one way because his wife haven't been working basically for the whole duration of basically their child and things like that. But now, even though he put it out on what he needs from his wife, because he's used to, the ladder of the, of things of old, I think now that, you have a new wife, basically with new tools, who work on the weekends, I think now he actually will have to do the work on his life and not be distracted by all the noise and clutter of their marriage, of their relationship, and things of that nature. What is your thoughts on what I said right there?
I I hear you. And I do agree that with Allison not being present, he's going to have to take some time to look at himself and actually see where he's at in his life and what he wants to do moving forward. So with quiet, there comes contemplation.
Yeah.
I would say. I'm happy that Allison got a job because I think she did need something to put her energy and focus into outside of the house. So I think that's really important that she took the step to do that. And I also feel like when it comes to the way that they were talking about the things that they needed, or that how he felt like she was more aware, and her getting triggered by that because she wanted it to be focused on him. I do think that a lot of the times there are a lot of moments to say that Allison is doing this, Allison's doing Y and Z, and Allison is bringing the vibe of the house down, essentially.
That's true.
Yeah. And I think that in this moment, even though I wasn't happy with her reactionary way of going about things, I can understand the fact of, look, we're trying to talk about how you can improve and speak up more, and the way that this situation is impacting you, but you kind of want to touch on what it's doing for me. Yes, it's doing something for me, but I can kind of speak for myself as well.
Yeah.
And I think that Orna's redirection and the way that she talks to her is inquire more about him, listen better, ask the questions instead of reacting to his perspective on you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a better way for Allison to get a better understanding of where he's at and where he needs to be in relation to this therapeutic process.
Yeah, especially if you're not disagreeing with me.
Right.
Like Weefrey was laughing when he said, I feel like this has been enlightening for you. Well, how do you know it's enlightening for me?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like, is it not? And like I said, some habits just, like, some bad habits just die hard. But I think Rod, the whole sense of how he needs to feel supported, how he needs to feel respected, and things like that, he needs to feel heard and things like that. I think that's going to take time, in the sense of, like, bad habits, but I think they are on the way, slowly but surely. And he gonna have to face some things, as the main focus was on Rod this episode in this session. He gonna have to focus on some things that he may have to help himself with now that she's not there on the weekend, because I do think there is something to every weekend they plan something together, or basically they plan out their week, and now, like, oh, you're not available on the weekends, so it's almost like a culture shock to, like, the house. Now that means I may have to do some things with our child, like, I may just have some alone time that I wasn't planning to have. So yeah, I think they are in the state of their relationship to where so many bad habits need to die on both their parts, mainly Allison, right? That now their relationship is in a culture shock. They are in a whole new world to where they just don't really know.
They're in a mode of transition.
Yeah, it's like, I don't really know where I'm at, but I'm here, you know?
So we move on to Kyle and Mondo.
Oh, yeah.
Kyle asks, how does race affect them as a couple? Thinking back to that interaction with the guy who dismissed Mondo when trying to get with Kyle, they never really talked about this, and Kyle now is thinking how to make sure Mondo is included more during these moments. Orna is wondering if that's why people open their relationships, to break some type of breakdown. Or symbiotic lockdown is how she the words that she used. Okay. Mondo said that they both are now being open in their relationship. He knows what it feels like now, and it feels like freedom and a lot of trust. Kyle says that there was a night where Mondo wasn't home, and he was wondering if he had hooked up with someone, but he was starting to get anxiety because he wanted to make sure he wasn't doing something stupid or crazy outside the house. And the question is asked by Orna, what is the stupid, crazy fear about? And Kyle was scared that if Mondo would find somebody else, that he would leave him. Okay. He would try to sabotage their relationship because he thought Mondo would leave anyway by smoking, drinking, secret hookups. And Mondo feels like he's having a real relationship with Kyle now, not just being his parent, and it feels like an equal partnership.
How?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when it comes to them, like, you really have to think outside the box, because their relationship is not a one that society would deem normal, right? Okay. They're already in a gay relationship, biracial relationship, open relationship. So
and then one is like deaf,
and one person is deaf. So I think that there's a lot of suspending personal beliefs to understand where they need to be when it comes to their relationship. Yeah. Personally, I think that with you guys opening it, you're adding more fuel to things possibly combust because of all these different fears and anxieties that you already have, and you're adding to it by bringing in strangers, you know. But I think when I'm suspending my personal beliefs in order for them to get to where they want to be, I think that when it comes to Kyle acknowledging that he fears that if Mondo finds someone else, he might leave him, that's something that they can explore and have conversations about, so he feels more secure in the fact that Mondo's not going to leave me just because we're in an open relationship. And it's funny how things kind of flipped, because Mondo was the one who had reservations, but he was also the one sitting at home waiting for Kyle to get back. But now that Mondo has stepped out a little bit, and he really just went out to get some food with a friend
whole time,
Kyle is starting to have these things pick up. And that's why I think that this is going to be a difficult situation to navigate. And I don't really know how therapy can help support it, honestly.
I agree with 90% of what you said, except like the middle end of what you said, right? I do want to suspend my beliefs and things like that, but I don't think my beliefs is basically guiding me in my opinion about them too.
Okay.
Right? They are gay, they are open. One is deaf, and he keeps hooking up with deaf people behind his non-deaf person. But like I don't think my beliefs is guiding me to have some type of like
judgment or something.
Judgmental view of them.
Yeah.
I think it's very simplistic, at least for me. This is what I think. I think Kyle, I almost called him evil,
okay.
right? Right. I think Kyle wants his cake and eat it too.
It just sounds selfish.
Like it's to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think it have to do with my belief to see that. He don't want Mondo to leave him because he wants to be the leaver. The reason why he don't want Kyle to leave him, the reason why Kyle doesn't want Mondo to leave him is because that triggers a pass of where his father left him. Instead, he wants to be the one that leaves.
Yeah.
That's selfish. That's having your cake and eat it too. That is basically, dude, you know how they say do unto others what you want done to you and things like that?
Yeah.
Kyle is not following that. You get what I'm saying? And I think Mondo right here is basically trying to cover up a huge wound that is not cleaned out, that is not flushed out with a Band-Aid. You need to go to the hospital and get that stitched up. And truth of the matter, he said, I think we're in a better place right now. No, because really the underlying issue of your relationship is that Kyle wants something that you don't.
Yeah.
He wants to be open and you don't. And you are trying to find your way or trying to find some type of peace in now you kind of see what I feel and things like that. But in the end of the day, that feeling only gonna last for a little bit. At the end of the day, when he hooks up with another white male, another white deaf male, you're going to feel some type of way, Mondo.
And it's going to be the same.
It's going to be the same feeling.
Yeah.
So my thing is now I'm putting the whole onus on Mondo. You have autonomy in this relationship too, that you can say, this is not what I want. You know what, Kyle, I love you and things like that. And Kyle, you have been a great partner for me and things of that nature. But we want two different things. And because we want two different things, I love you enough that I want to free you for you to get what you want. And I want to free myself so I can get what I want, so I can be truly happy, besides lying to myself.
Yeah. So we move on to Nick and Katherine.
Yeah.
Katherine says all of their energy has been focused on Nick's pain, and she sometimes feels like, what about my pain?
That's true.
Orna says that she's drawn in by Nick's story, and she has to determine what is Nick's issue, how much can be resolved by the other person waiting in the wings. Katherine has struggled with her relationship with food, spending money, and Nick says that Katherine went out with their daughter, and she called him to warn him she spent a lot of money. She spent close to $1,000 in a day.
That's wild.
On Sephora, food, nails. They went out to eat twice that day, and she just says Sephora is a vortex. She also says Target is a vortex. Stay out the vortex.
Well, guess what? The street is a vortex too when you ain't got rent. Okay, listen, it's pulling me there.
Nick says it's less about him and it's more about her dynamics with other people.
Okay.
Like being bullied, feeling not attractive or cool is what he's saying that were things that she was feeling and kind of compensates for in the way that she indulges. Katherine says that she was overweight around 12 and 13 and tried to find love for herself. She looks back and just sees herself as a disaster.
Yeah.
Orna says arguments about money with all of this in mind, like, what are you guys' thoughts with the history as well as the current money issues? Well, Nick knows that he plays a role with the financial stuff because he had a gambling addiction and he has gone through not having money. He went to therapy. He found some control around it. And if it's an addiction, you can't really tell your partner not to have their own issues.
Yeah.
Katherine says that she wants warmth from him, to be there for her. Sometimes he's cold and removed. She doesn't get that love from anyone in her life other than her daughter, and that's why she has her daughter sleep with her sometimes, because she just wants to be held. She would like to hear from him that she's enough and to get hugged sometimes.
Ooh, do you want to go first with me?
I'm gonna go first
Go ahead.
because I'm probably gonna have less to say.
Don't judge me.
I think that two things can be true at one time.
Okay.
I think that Katherine can have an issue with spending and self-worth and looking for it in different ways. And I think that, or what is his name? Nick can also has his issues of being a recovering gambling addict.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you guys are in a partnership.
Facts.
And I think that you guys are here to make each other better and to protect whatever it is that you guys are building and working when it comes to your family unit. And so I would like Katherine to be open to Nick telling her, hey, let's not spend that much money. But if he is dealing with an addiction, I can imagine that being hard for her to hear from him because you had us in the hole some years back.
Yeah.
But I think that you can't allow the past to dictate where you guys are and where you want to be. And if he has gotten a hold on it and he's doing better with it, allow him to use some of those strategies that he's working on himself to kind of help you get to a better place when it comes to how you spend financially.
Yeah.
But that trust has to be there. And I think they do trust each other, but I think it's just a bit of still, I want to do what I want to do regardless of how you feel.
Yeah.
And then also, there is a certain tenderness that I think some women want from their partner, especially even if I'm in the wrong. I don't want you to beat me over the head with my wrong. I still want you to approach me with warmth and kindness and not hollering at me because here I go spending another $1,000
a day.
And I think that Katherine has to meet him in the middle somewhere with that, because it's fair for him to be upset about you spending money from the accounts and you don't do anything to contribute financially. I think that it's fair for him to have an edge in his voice about that. And I also don't want her to continue to depend on her child for emotional support, because I think that's very unhealthy and putting a child in an adult's position. And that a child doesn't need to be privy to, or even some type of like solace for your adult issues. Like, you're in therapy, use your therapist, talk to your husband, not your baby. So
the fact that you said that you was gonna be shorter than me is crazy, because I don't have a lot to say on this. To start off from the beginning, number one, I do not like Nick and Katherine and the way they represent their stories in this episode. When it was time for Katherine to tell her story, who told Katherine's story? Nick told Katherine's story.
Yeah, they do that.
So when the trauma that Nick is going through or went through and things of that nature, where it was time for him to own his story, right? To basically own the narrative. Yes, things happen to you, but at the end of the day, you are the main character in your story, right? Who told the story? Katherine. Now, Katherine, it's time. Now the focus is on you. We're not talking about Nick. But guess who got to tell your story, Katherine? Nick. I don't understand this whole like
speaking for each other, Siamese twins type of thing, to where like y'all have to basically talk for each other. Y'all need to learn how to own y'all stories, own y'all right and wrongs, right? Even things that you've been wronged in. Number two, I do find it interesting that Nick did have a gambling addiction, and in some way, because he felt like he probably was bad with money, and he understands that, hey, you could tell someone not to spend, you could tell someone, hey, you need a budget, but they need to see it for themselves. He probably feels like, hey, I really can't do nothing about Katherine's spending. And that right there is an example of you choosing to take your hands off the wheel. I would think that since you've been through therapy, since you've been through treatments to where you getting a hold on this addiction, that you will probably be well qualified to basically like, hey, because I seen the dark side of this, I'm going to definitely put my hands more on the wheel on this. But that's basically Nick's whole personality that we've seen so far in these in this season, is that when it's time for him to take the wheel or put his hands back on the wheel and take control of his life, he just let the car spin out, or basically he let the passenger drive it and things like that. He don't take control of the narrative. Yeah.
Right? Now with Katherine, I understand self-love is important. And at the end of the day, I do agree. And coming from me, it may be hypocritical because I am not the sophist, right? Especially when it comes to you being in the wrong. Because when I'm in the wrong, I don't need a hug when I'm in the wrong. Just tell me I'm in the wrong and I'd be like, okay, I won't do that again, or I will begin to do this and I don't need a hug after, right? No matter the softness, put it like this, there's not an amount of hugs that Nick can give you that can replace the self-love that you need to give yourself, right? I think Katherine is going through a lot of like she needs some type of like self-love, you know, some type of self-esteem. You get what I'm saying? Looking back at yourself at 12 or 13 and seeing yourself as a disaster is wild.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? It's kind of funny because people who have battled with their weight, and let's say if you thought you was fat at like 16, 17 and then now you're in your 30s and you look back at those pictures, you be like, you know what, I wasn't really that big, unless you was, you know, obese. But, you know, some people that feel like, you know what, I was 30 pounds overweight, but really when I look back, I look smaller, right? And I think she needs to basically, whatever she needs to do to get some self-esteem. And I do think that it will help for Nick to be softer, to give her a hug, as we did see in this episode after their session. He did hug her in the hallway and things like that. But they need to work on owning their story, telling their story. Because here's the thing about it. When you don't own the story, then you won't own the accountability that happens when you mess up.
Right.
That's why when she overspent for the party, she's like, well, I got rid of the musician. You get what I'm saying? And guess what? The thing was paid for. It wasn't on credit. And that's when he's like, by whom? Like I had to pull money from basically the sky. You know what I mean? And I have to pay that money back. So that is part of, hey, you're not owning your story, so you're not going to own the part that you play in your story.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So that's why I'm like, I need Katherine to tell her story. I don't need Nick to speak for her, even though it's nice and things of that nature. But if Nick wasn't there, then we just be staring at each other. And I need her to basically love yourself. Also, when it comes to, and it's easier said than done. I'm not saying that, hey, just love yourself. Just look in the mirror and say, I am enough. I'm not saying do that. But it's a process. When it comes to children, do not involve children in adult problems. That child got his own room. That child got his own problems trying to learn cursive, if they even write in cursive and things like that, trying to learn arithmetic, you get what I'm saying, division, all those things, science. That child has child problems. The minute you start using your child as a, you know what, I let my baby sleep with me because she cuddles me and she holds me, what's wrong with you? Like at that point, you need to look at yourself and be like, you know what? No, my child needs to be a child, because what's going to happen is your child going to grow up when she's your age and she going to be like, yeah, when I was 10 years old, I had to hold my mama.
Yeah.
And
that's wild.
And that's why I'm just like, no, man, you have to own your story so you can own the part you play in your story, so you won't basically start this cycle to where, like, you know, your child in therapy talking about my mom is like, you got to break the cycle. You get what I'm saying? Anything else?
That's all we got.
I feel like we were the same amount of time, but I'm going to look at the time and I think you was longer.
All right.
Anything else?
That's it.
Subscribe, like, share, comment, all the above. I think we got 2 more episodes left. We see y'all.
Bye.